First call is Ethan from Oakland, California.
Hi, Peter. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. So I've heard you talk about how Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, and I've read your father's stuff, and I completely understand why it's a Ponzi scheme. But when I try to tell people, they just don't understand it. They call me a conspiracy theorist. They say I'm lying. They say all this stuff. Could you tell me, like, what would you tell them to convince them that it is a Ponzi scheme?
Well, you just have to show them how it's financed. I mean, what makes something a Ponzi scheme versus a legitimate investment is when you make an investment, the returns are generated from that asset. So if Social Security was run like a real insurance program, what would happen is they would collect the premiums or the taxes from the Social Security recipients. They would invest that money for that person. They would buy stocks, they would buy corporate bonds or some other asset. That account would grow in value, and then the income and the principal that is accumulating over the years would then be distributed back to the person in retirement to fund it, and it would be an actual that was viable. What's a Ponzi scheme is when you don't actually make any investments. That what happens is you take money in and you spend it, and then in order to pay a return, you need to get new investors to give you new money. That's what Bernie Madoff did. That's why it doesn't work. Ponzi schemes can never work. They always fall apart. And they're known by all sorts of names, chain letters, pyramid schemes, but they're illegal because they can't work. Well, Social Security is run on the exact same principle, and the government admits it. They call it pay-as-you-go. Well, that's what Bernie Madoff was. He was running as a pay-as-you-go investment company, right? It's the same difference. What pay-as-you-go means is that when the government collects Social Security taxes, they don't invest any of the money. They just spend it. They spend it on the war in Iraq. They spend it to pay farmers not to grow food. They spend it to bail out AIG. They do whatever they want with it. And then what they do is they promise that the people who are paying these Social Security taxes, that when they reach 65, that they're going to tax some other young person. They're going to take money away from somebody else to give them their return. That's what makes it a Ponzi scheme. So it's not like it's a conspiracy. I mean, this is public information. Now, one of the things that the government tries to pretend to make it sound like it's not a Ponzi scheme is they say, well, no, the money isn't spent. It's invested. Here, we have it all invested in government bonds. But that's a sham. Because the government can't invest in its own bonds any more than you can write yourself a check and pretend you have an asset. You know, a government bond in my hands is an asset. A government bond in the government hands isn't an asset because it's an asset and a liability that cancels each other out. So when they say there's bonds in the trust fund, that means there's nothing in the trust fund because the way the Social Security trust funds would have to get money is they'd have to take those bonds and sell them. Well, if there was no trust fund, that's exactly what they'd have to do. The government would have to go into debt. So, you know, it's not a conspiracy. It's just a fact. But somehow people think that if a Ponzi scheme is operated by the government, it can work. Now, the only difference is the government can force people to participate because it's a law, right? They take Social Security right out of your paychecks. So the reason the government's Ponzi scheme has gone on for so long is because there's a law requiring you to participate in it. You know, if it wasn't a law, if Social Security were voluntary, right, it would have collapsed already. Nobody would want to pay the tax. I mean, Social Security is a good deal for the people who got in really early, who just put in a little bit of money and have been collecting. I mean, Bernie Madoff's customers that invested a little bit of money and have been taking their dividends out for the past 10 or 20 years, they made a lot of money. But the only reason they made money is because other people are losing money. So the people who got into Social Security early and the people who are still alive, who are 80 and 90, who are still collecting it, they like Social Security because they paid in a little bit and they're getting a lot. But the people who are paying the taxes now, they're going to hate it because they're going to pay in a lot and get practically nothing.
In the broader world economy. And what I mean by this, for example, is that if you look at America's Social Security system, using the Madoff example, you could say that America's Social Security system is a Ponzi scheme, which in fact it is. The retirees who draw benefits are being funded by the workers who are paying into the system now. There is no fund in the American so-called Social Security fund. It's just a Ponzi scheme. It's new people paying in, paying off retirees. As the economy unravels and as this global crisis becomes more profound, the American Social Security system will in fact take the biscuit as the world's biggest Ponzi scheme. It's a $50 trillion Ponzi scheme. I think when you add up all the liabilities ultimately, and you can make the same case for.
But
other
isn't the point about
the,
that? Isn't that a point about that there's a astronomical amount of time, and that they can keep doing it because until the sun explodes, maybe?
Well, what's kept it going has been 25 years worth of growth, so-called. But what we're finding is that as the economy contracts and as jobs are lost and companies are unable to pay into these schemes anymore, the new money that it takes to sustain a Ponzi scheme or a pyramid scheme disappears. This is why the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme collapses, because the global credit crunch that started 18 months ago started to affect the client's ability to keep adding more funds, which is at the base of the pyramid. So similarly, in the Social Security case, as more and more people are unable to pay into the front door of the scam, the back door therefore can't pay off the retirees. So this is going to go the way of I think anyway, the Bernie Madoff empire of scam as well.
According to the Social Security Administration, the trust funds that pay out Social Security benefits will be exhausted by 2041. If that's not scary enough, a recent study shows that a male earning $95,000 per year and retiring in the year 2045 is estimated to lose over $200,000 by participating in the Social Security system. Sound good to you? Yeah, I know. But before we get ahead of ourselves on this, let's hear from a politician. What does Ron Paul think about all of this?
The Social Security system is not fair. It's very similar to the Medicaid system. You know, it's well motivated and supposed to help people. The country was very, very wealthy, and ever since it was started, a lot of people have benefit. For them, they think it's very fair, but for young people, it isn't. But it's gone on for a long time. But I can remember my dad when he retired at 65, he said it took him about 3 years to get everything back that he put into it. And he put something into it for 30 years. But, you know, the benefits are always motivated by the politicians who wouldn't dare vote against the beneficiaries of Social Security. So it's very flawed. It encourages bankruptcy. Young people are very much aware of this. The original donors are getting paid off with the money coming in from the younger generation. But the economy is getting weaker. There are less jobs available now. The younger generation is smaller in number compared to the baby boomers. There's no way it can work. And a lot of people are waking up to this fact, and they're saying that they're not very happy with it. But right now, people are dreaming if they think that we can patch this up. There's no money in Washington, D.C. It's all just debt. The only way we can pay beneficiaries is by having more donors. It is a Ponzi scheme.